Welcome back to Wisdom Unveiled. Just a heads up, this is a translation of conversations with Iranian philosophers. And, sometimes in translation, things can get a little, well, some details might not come across perfectly. So we apologize in advance for any discrepancies. Anyway, today we're diving into episode 32 of our 40-episode deep dive into Marifat.
Ah, Marifat, a fascinating collection of conversations.
Yeah, between Dr. Dinani and Dr. Laurijani.
Exploring the wisdom of Rumi, no less.
Exactly, Rumi. And these conversations, let me tell you, they're just packed with these amazing insights. And it's kind of crazy how they connect Rumi's poetry from like centuries ago to our everyday lives.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable how relevant his work still is.
Totally. Sometimes I find myself so caught up in just like the daily grind that I forget to like look deeper,
I hear that. It's easy to get swept away by the everyday stuff.
Yeah, like, I see a chair and it's just a chair. It's like, okay, a chair, what else is there? But the Dr. Dinani, he makes this really intriguing point about how we're like blinded by the obvious, fixated on labels and forms. You know what I mean?
Right, we get stuck on the surface.
Exactly. He even asks this question, like, do we really see the chair or do we see the existence that allows the chair to be?
Whoa, that's deep.
It is, right?
Yeah.
So instead of just seeing these separate objects, we start to get a sense of this like interconnectedness, this unity that Rumi talks about.
Yeah, that's a key theme in Rumi's work, the interconnectedness of all things.
And Dr. Laurijani, he takes it even further. He actually challenges this whole idea of the world being just like a collection of separate objects. He's like, is it truly a collection or is it one thing with these like as its manifestations?
That's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. Hold on, though. Wouldn't some people say that seeing the world as all these distinct objects, isn't that kind of necessary for just navigating everyday life? Like, how would we function if we saw everything as just like one big interconnected blob?
That's a valid point, but I don't think Dr. Laurijani is suggesting that we completely abandon all distinctions.
Okay.
It's more about like shifting our perspective, adding another layer of understanding.
Gotcha.
Think of it like, well, you can appreciate the uniqueness of each wave, right?
Yeah.
But you still recognize that they're all part of the same ocean.
Oh, I like that. So we're not throwing out practicality, but we're adding this like deeper layer of understanding, right?
Exactly. And this shift in perspective, this whole idea of seeing the unseen, it's really at the heart of Rumi's work.
And speaking of seeing the unseen, Rumi uses this analogy of a scent, right?
Yes.
To describe this deeper reality, this truth.
Dr. Laurijani points out that just as a scent can fill a room, the scent of truth is, well, it's everywhere. It's always present, you know?
Okay, so this truth is like, it's like a background hum that's always there, but we don't always pick up on it.
Precisely. Just like some people have a more sensitive sense of smell, some are more attuned to perceiving this deeper truth.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But then how do we develop that sensitivity? How do we tune into this scent of truth that's supposedly all around us?
Well, Rumi suggests that it's a journey, a journey of self-discovery, this process of turning inward.
Okay.
Dr. Dinani actually, he compares it to an archaeological dig,
Oh, interesting.
like you're excavating the layers of your inner world.
So we're not just talking about book smarts here. It's more about like introspection, self-awareness, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. It's about going deeper, beyond just like the surface level of our thoughts and emotions.
Okay.
And as we do that, we start to uncover these hidden treasures, insights, wisdom, a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
I see. And as we dig deeper, like on this archaeological dig, we start to see those connections, that unity that Rumi keeps talking about. It's like we realize we're not actually separate from the world, but like a part of this larger, I don't know, tapestry.
Exactly. We're all woven together. And that realization, it can be incredibly powerful. It shifts our whole perspective,
Yeah, I can imagine. But it can't be all smooth sailing, right? Rumi also talks about like obstacles on this path to self-discovery. He mentions things like fame, desire, and wealth.
Right. Those external pursuits can be so tempting.
And both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Laurijani, they highlight how these things, while tempting, they can really distract us from the real work,
It's like chasing shadows instead of embracing the substance.
Totally. So it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of, I don't know, external validation, material possessions, all that jazz. But Rumi's saying that true fulfillment, it lies in a different direction.
He definitely seems to be suggesting that. And that's why he emphasizes cultivating the intellect.
The intellect, right?
Yeah. Not just in terms of like accumulating knowledge, but developing a deeper understanding, a wisdom that allows us to see through these illusions.
So we need to use our minds to go beyond our minds, to recognize the traps that we can fall into.
Yeah, it's like Dr. Laurijani says, and I love this quote. He says, "The only light you have is the light of intellect."
Wow.
It's about awakening that inner light that helps us to see clearly, to navigate through all the distractions and stay on this path of self-discovery.
And to get back to that image, Rumi also uses the metaphor of lifting a veil to describe this whole process, right?
Yes, he does. The veil represents our attachments, illusions, and limiting beliefs.
And it's not something external. It's something we create within ourselves through our habits of perception.
Exactly.
So it's like we're filtering our experience through all these preconceived notions, these mental constructs that we've built up. And that's what prevents us from seeing the world as it truly is.
That's a great way to put it. Lifting the veil is about challenging those perceptions, seeing beyond those limitations.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got this scent of truth that's everywhere, but we're often just not tuned into it. We've got all these internal obstacles that distract us from doing the inner work, and we've got this veil of illusions that we need to lift. Whew, sounds like a lot of work.
It is a journey, that's for sure. But you know what? It's not a journey that we have to make alone. Rumi often speaks of love as the most powerful force in the universe, like the guiding light on this path.
We often think of love in just, romantic terms, but Rumi seems to have a much more expansive view. What does he actually mean when he talks about love as this, universal force?
That's a great question. And we're going to get into that. But first, I think it's time for a quick break.
All right. Sounds good. We'll be back in a jiffy.
It's fascinating how Rumi connects beauty to this whole idea of seeing the unseen. He doesn't see beauty as just, superficial.
Right.
He sees it as an expression of the divine, a reflection of that underlying unity that we were just talking about.
So it's not just about, appreciating a pretty sunset or a beautiful piece of art?
Exactly. Dr. Laurijani, he emphasizes this point. He says that beauty, it helps us to see that unity, that interconnectedness that goes beyond, just the apparent differences between things.
I see.
It's about recognizing that everything is a manifestation of the same source,
So those moments of awe and wonder that we experience, like gazing at the stars or, listening to music or even just connecting with nature, are those glimpses of that deeper reality?
Precisely. Those are the moments when the veil lifts and we see with the eye of the heart.
Wow. Okay. But how do we cultivate that way of seeing more often? How do we actually integrate this awareness into our daily lives?
That's the real work. Right.
Yeah, it's easy to feel connected when you're, on a mountaintop or lost in a beautiful symphony. But what about when you're stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult coworker? How do you access that sense of beauty and connection then?
Well, Dr. Dinani, he urges us to really pay attention, to slow down and savor the simple things. It's about shifting our focus from all that mental chatter to direct experience, to truly noticing the beauty that's all around us.
So instead of just rushing through life on autopilot,
Yeah.
we make a conscious effort to be present, to really be there.
Yes, and as we practice this mindful awareness, we start to see things differently. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and we begin to experience that sense of wonder and connection more often. It's like Rumi is saying, don't wait for the mountaintop experience. The divine is present in every breath and every moment.
I love that. It's about finding the sacred in the mundane, the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Exactly.
But that brings up another question. Rumi also talks a lot about, knowing oneself, self-knowledge. Is there a connection between seeing the unseen and this idea of self-knowledge?
Absolutely. In fact, Dr. Dinani, he poses this question directly. Do you know yourself? And he's not just talking about knowing your name or your job title,
Right.
but the essence of who you are.
Right. It's about going deeper, understanding our true nature, both the light and shadow within us, right?
Exactly. And he uses this really powerful metaphor of a mirror.
Okay.
He says that if the mirror is dirty, we won't be able to see ourselves clearly.
So the dirt represents those limiting beliefs, those preconceived notions that kind of cloud our perception.
Precisely. We need to polish the mirror, clear away the dust of our conditioning to see ourselves more truthfully. And as we do that, we start to see others more clearly, too.
Oh, interesting.
Our compassion deepens, our understanding expands.
This makes me think of Rumi's idea of the false self and the true self. It's like we have this mask that we present to the world, but underneath, there's this deeper, more authentic self just waiting to be discovered.
You're right on track. The journey of self-discovery involves shedding those masks, those layers of conditioning that prevent us from experiencing our true nature.
So it's about moving beyond the ego, that limited sense of self, to
Hmm.
connect with something larger, something more expansive.
Yes, and Dr. Larijani emphasizes the importance of this connection. He says, don't let the fear of losing yourself prevent you from finding God.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that true fulfillment, it comes from surrendering to something greater than ourselves.
It's about losing ourselves in the divine, in that interconnectedness that Rumi speaks of. And speaking of losing ourselves, Rumi also highlights the power of silence.
Silence. That seems a bit counterintuitive. How can
Yeah.
we discover anything in silence? Isn't it about expressing ourselves, engaging with the world?
Well, Dr. Dinani, he addresses this beautifully. He says, silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation.
Hmm. So sometimes the most profound truths are found in the quiet spaces, those moments when we pause the mental chatter and just simply listen.
Exactly. Dr. Larijani adds to this. He says, if you want to hear the voice of God, listen to the silence within.
It's about cultivating that inner sanctuary, that space of stillness where we can connect with the wisdom that resides within, right? But honestly, silence can be really challenging, especially in our fast-paced, noisy world.
Right.
What are some practices that can help us cultivate this inner stillness?
Both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani highly recommend meditation and mindfulness. Dr. Dinani describes meditation as a journey inward, a return to the source.
It's about taking time each day to just be present, to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, and to allow ourselves to settle into that space of stillness.
And mindfulness, as Dr. Larijani explains, is about paying attention to the breath, to the sensations of the body, to the sights and sounds around us. It's about becoming more attuned to the present moment, noticing the details of our experience without getting lost in thought.
So instead of constantly dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we bring our awareness to the here and now.
Exactly. And as we practice mindfulness, we start to see the world with fresh eyes, appreciating the beauty and wonder that often goes unnoticed. We start to connect with that scent of truth that's always present.
These practices of meditation and mindfulness sound like really powerful tools for cultivating that inner stillness, where we can see the unseen.
They are. They help us quiet the noise of the world and tune in to the whispers of our soul. And as we become more attuned to that inner voice, we start to see the world through the lens of the heart.
That brings us back to Rumi's idea of the eye of the heart. It's not just a poetic image, is it? It's a way of seeing that goes beyond the limitations of the physical eyes.
Exactly. Dr. Dinani, he emphasizes this point, saying, the eye of the heart is the eye of love. It sees the beauty in everything.
It's about seeing with compassion, with understanding, with a deep appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things.
And Dr. Larijani, he adds to this perspective saying, the eye of the heart sees God in everything and everyone.
Wow. It's about recognizing that divine spark that resides within all of creation.
And this way of seeing, it transforms our experience of the world. We start to see the sacred in the ordinary, the divine in the mundane.
We begin to experience a deeper sense of connection, of belonging, of love for all beings.
It's a shift from seeing the world as separate and fragmented to experiencing it as one unified whole. It's about remembering that we are all part of this intricate tapestry of existence. And that realization, it can be incredibly liberating and empowering.
It's like Rumi is guiding us on this journey of remembering who we truly are, shedding the layers of conditioning that have kind of obscured our true nature.
You've got it. He's inviting us to connect with that divine spark within, to awaken the eye of the heart, and to see the world with a clarity and love that transforms everything.
And this journey isn't always easy, is it? It's filled with challenges, obstacles, moments of darkness.
You're right. But as Rumi reminds us, these challenges, they're opportunities for growth, for deepening our understanding, for strengthening our connection to the divine. He says, and this is so beautiful, the wound is the place where the light enters you.
That's such a powerful reminder. So our struggles, our pain, our moments of darkness can actually be catalysts for transformation.
Exactly. They can be opportunities for opening our hearts to a deeper level of love and compassion.
But sometimes it feels like we're just hitting our heads against the wall, you know? How do we navigate those times when we feel lost or discouraged on this journey? What does Rumi suggest?
Well, he brings up this concept of surrender.
Surrender. That can be a challenging concept, can't it? It seems to go against our natural instinct to control our lives, to strive and achieve.
It is. But Rumi suggests that true freedom, it comes from letting go of that control, from surrendering to the flow of life, to the will of the divine.
So it's not about giving up or becoming passive. It's about shifting our perspective, trusting in something larger than ourselves.
Exactly. Dr. Dhanani explains that surrender is about trusting in a power greater than ourselves. It's about letting go of our ego's grip, our need to control everything, and allowing ourselves to be guided by a wisdom that's beyond our limited understanding.
So it's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers, that there's a greater intelligence at work in the universe.
And Dr. Laurijani adds to this so beautifully. He says, surrender is the key to unlocking the door to divine love.
It's about opening our hearts fully, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, and trusting that we're held and supported by something larger than ourselves.
It's about having faith that even when things feel difficult or uncertain, there's a deeper purpose unfolding.
So it's not about passivity. It's about active trust, about aligning ourselves with the flow of life.
Beautifully put. And in that surrender, we find true freedom. We release the burden of control and allow ourselves to be carried by the current of divine love.
This is all so incredibly inspiring, but it also feels like a lot to digest. Where do we even begin to apply all of this wisdom to our daily lives?
Yeah, it feels like we're being called to step onto this incredible path, of self-discovery and connection. But it can feel a little daunting at times.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in.
It is. So where do we even begin to apply all this wisdom to our daily lives?
Well, it might be helpful to think of it not so much as a set of rigid rules, but more as a process of unfolding. Remember how Rumi talked about the intellect?
It plays a really important role here, not just in accumulating knowledge, but in helping us actually understand and integrate these teachings.
But we were just talking about surrender. So
Yeah.
that seemed kind of contradictory. Using our intellect, but also letting go.
Right. That's where it gets really interesting. Rumi doesn't view the intellect as simply about gathering facts. It's about cultivating a discerning mind, an intellect that can actually penetrate those illusions that we create for ourselves.
Okay.
Dr. Laurijani puts it pretty bluntly. He says, if you are not aware, you are like a donkey carrying a load of books.
Ooh, that's a vivid image.
It is, right. But I get what he's saying. It's not enough to just possess knowledge. We need to internalize it, let it guide us.
But how does that tie in with surrender?
Well, think about it this way. A well-developed intellect, it helps us see the limitations of our ego, our need to control everything. And it's that realization that actually allows us to surrender to something larger, the wisdom of the heart, the divine flow of life.
So it's like Rumi saying, use your mind to understand its limits. Then let go. Let your heart lead.
Exactly. It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? And this leads us right back to the power of silence. Remember Dr. Dhanani describing it as the language of God? It's in that silence and that stillness that we can truly hear those whispers of wisdom.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connections here. But silence can be so elusive, especially in our, noisy, chaotic world. How do we learn to understand this language that speaks without words?
It begins with, quieting the mind, creating space for that inner stillness. Dr. Laurijani suggests if you want to hear the voice of God, listen to the silence within. And it's not just about external quiet, but about calming the constant chatter of our thoughts and anxieties.
So it's about finding that sanctuary within ourselves where we can access a deeper level of knowing.
Yes, and that's where practices like meditation and mindfulness come in. They help us to cultivate that inner silence. Dr. Dhanani describes meditation as a journey inward, a return to the source.
It's about taking that time each day to just be present, to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, and to allow ourselves to settle into that quiet space.
Right. And mindfulness, as Dr. Laurijani explains, is about paying attention to the breath, to the sensations of the body, to the sights and sounds around us. It's about being fully present in each moment, savoring the richness of our experience.
So instead of rushing through life lost in thought, we become more aware, more appreciative of the simple things.
Exactly.
And through that awareness, we begin to see the world through the eye of the heart, right?
Precisely. And as we cultivate this eye of the heart, Dr. Dhanani reminds us it sees the beauty in everything.
So it's about seeing with compassion, with understanding, with a deep appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things.
Exactly. And as we cultivate this way of seeing, Dr. Laurijani suggests the eye of the heart sees God in everything and everyone.
This has been such a profound exploration of Rumi's wisdom. It's clear that seeing the unseen is not passive. It requires effort, intention, and a willingness to engage both our hearts and minds.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd like to leave our listeners with one final thought from Rumi himself. He says, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there."
What a beautiful and evocative invitation. It reminds us that the journey to the unseen, it's ultimately a journey inward, to that place within us where love, wisdom, and true connection reside.
And as we cultivate this inner landscape, we begin to see the world and ourselves with new eyes, filled with compassion, understanding, and a deep appreciation for the beauty that surrounds us all.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of Rumi's wisdom. We hope these insights have inspired you to embark on your own exploration of the unseen, to cultivate the eye of the heart, and to embrace the boundless love that connects us all. Until next time, may your path be illuminated by the light of truth and your heart filled with the joy of discovery.